This is the Team Objection podcast for July 1st, 2021, episode 489. Viewers watching the YouTube stream, as is preferred these days, have already noticed that something is awry. But for the listeners, Dave, tell them what they've won.
Well, we lied in the intro. I'm sorry. The intro promised that Chris and I and Shaun would be there. Shaun is not here. For our other YouTube viewers, our FIFA and NHL guest Cody is here, and yeah, Shaun is dead. He died last week. He couldn't handle the Suns losing Game 5 and just plunged himself.
So it's interesting you bring that up. We will talk about the Suns very briefly towards the tail end of this show. We're in a weird time. This is Tuesday night, as when we normally record. Game 5 was last night. It sucked. Game 6 is tomorrow night, or last night, as you're listening to this. So for all we know, the Suns could have advanced to the NBA Finals, or they could have blown Game 6 and be staring at a Game 7. Either way, it's kind of a weird time to talk about it. So we're not going to for very long. It will be the final bullet point, as you can see on the planner if you're watching. In the meantime, we're going to quickly dust over some other topics, just things that we thought might be interesting, given that Cody was here and Shaun was not. Most of them probably would have come up either way. One of them certainly would have, and he may be disappointed not to be here for it.
He's going to chime in on it next week. Of course, that would assume that he listens at all, and that's a silly thought of me.
Well, he's also dead, so I don't know how he'll listen.
That's true. Yeah. What are you doing giving it away?
Look, yeah. Cody, you don't know the history of this show as much, but they actually had a 3-episode-long arc that I was dead when I got married, and that I was actually off the show, to the point where there were actually fans of ours that believed that I was not going to be on the show anymore, and they were surprised when I came back.
So you ruined that arc's idea now with Shaun being dead and then immediately saying he'll be back next week.
Yeah, because we know.
Like, well, I guess you said he'd be back next week.
Yeah.
Both of you.
It's okay.
You ruined it. That's fine.
Maybe we weren't committed to the bit.
Apparently not. I thought I was just going to get to be, quote unquote, fully replacing him, but it's fine.
Well,
it's
okay. To be fair, at that same arc, we did offer tryouts to see if anyone would stick. So this is your tryout.
Okay.
That's true. The first one was really low stakes. You were just kind of added into the mix, and that was fine, and you did pretty well. But this is different. This is,
one show contract. That's all I get.
You're scoring points with the T-shirt, I will say. As the longtime fans know, I've worn that shirt many times, so you're already scoring points.
Yeah, I didn't want to talk about it, but I think it was inevitable. It's the Arrested Development shirt that Dave wears all the time.
I could have thrown on I guess, Coyotes shirt or Cardinals shirt, and then had one of each sport here, but considering I'm not a fan of this state's, teams and things like that, I don't really have any shirts like that to wear. I could have worn a Clippers shirt. That'd have been better, but I also don't have any of those. So
you would have lost some points on that one then.
That would have hurt your candidacy, I think. I think it's pretty safe to say that would not have helped.
No.
So first up this week, we've talked for months about the scarcity of the 2 next-gen systems, and hell, the Switch is even bordering on that territory now because there's been so much demand throughout the pandemic that even those are kind of hard to come by. But we've reached a turning point. Shaun has a PS5, has for a couple weeks now. Friend of the show, Doug, found one for him and hooked him up at market value. Then Cody got I guess Cody had this had the Series S.
Yeah,
he had it on the trip that we took in May, which was our first chance to even experience the system or know that it was real. And now I have a Series S. I got it last week, recently, and I've been putting it through the paces. So while Dave doesn't have one yet, we can at least start kind of talking about the next-gen systems and what they're like. It's only been 9 months. Let's talk about our experiences.
See, I'll start by saying scarcity. I mean, if you just caved and got an S sooner, there wouldn't really have been the same kind of scarcity that you were talking about. They've been available.
Yeah, but why?
You just didn't want one.
You got to get, but if you're going to be spending that money on something that's going to last for years, you want to get what you want to get. You don't want to just get whatever's available.
Well, you have too high a standards, apparently, for video games.
I was just thinking about this, and I'm going to, the S, Chris's reasoning for getting the S is very good. If he's having it kind of as a backup system, if you plan on getting the PlayStation 5 at a later time, having a no-disc thing to keep in your room so you can play a few games before you, at night or something like that is a great idea. I actually wouldn't mind that myself. I think it'd be a good idea too. But I love the fact of, since I don't always play the new games right when they come out, being able to go to a used game place and pick something up for super cheap is awesome, as opposed to I just was looking on my PS4 and thinking maybe I should get an old version of the show because I enjoy playing baseball. I don't care about the newest version of it. The show 2018 was $30 to download. I'm like, what? That's stupid. So I didn't do it.
Nor should you. What you can do, the meme lately on the internet now has been talking about the value that is Xbox Game Pass.
Yeah.
And
Which is-
admittedly, I have actually become kind of a proponent of it.
Yeah. I mean, so what coverage does Game Pass have? Because I have recently signed up for PlayStation Now, which has kind of helped for a couple games, but it seems like those are all older games only. I mean, does Xbox Game Pass just have kind of everything except like AAA titles?
Tell them.
It's pretty close. Yeah, I mean, so why I jumped at the chance to go get an S right away was sort of for that kind of point is, so it's really annoying. Like you're talking about sports games, right? So if you want to play it with updated rosters or whatever tiny little things they change, I don't want to pay $60 every year, I guess, for the 5 different sports games that it is. So if you're going to play online, which obviously we do, Xbox Live is whatever. I think it's like $10 a month now. And then Game Pass is $15 a month. So for $5 more a month, if you're already going to pay $10 a month, no matter what, you get back access to, 85, 90% of the game. So everything EA is on there. 2K is on there for, NBA. Obviously, everything that Xbox is putting out, which is, basically every Bethesda game now, if I remember right. So I think the catalog of it is pretty deep. And obviously with the show moving over to from only Sony to being on Xbox too, you basically have every sports game available. And so I think what I thought was, I'm going to pay $10 a month no matter what for playing online, because I'm just going to play stuff online on the thing. So for that's $60 more a year, I can easily upgrade every single sports game. Obviously, the downside is the S's memory sucks. I mean, we know we put 4 games onto mine and it was filled up. Thankfully, and we'll probably get into this more, the download time on that is so much quicker than my PS4 is, to where it's not really that inconvenient to be like, all right, I got to download a new game. It's not the best thing, but disc games, obviously, when you put them in, they're eating up memory too, because it has to install all the shit that it has to install now. And I think when I started realizing how much of a pain in the ass that was, I was like, at that point, your point is, you're valid. I mean, obviously, if you want to get an old game and replace it, there's some sales that work pretty well, like if you get things at the right time, but you have to be pretty aware of all of that. I've just found that for probably a cheaper price, I'm going to get to always play every new sports game. And so that's not going to be for everyone. But when I play FIFA and NHL and Madden and all of those games, that just recycled value over and over again seems like it really pays off. I don't know if that's what Chris started to lean towards, or if there's another reason he actually started to cave on it.
I get that point. I think I always got sports games like every other year or every third year for that reason, because I don't want to pay $60 for the newest version every year. So that is a good reasoning, because like I said, for an extra $60 a year, which is the cost of one of those games, great. And like I said, I got PlayStation Now, which is kind of the same deal. I paid $10 a month for PlayStation Now, and I've already played a game that would have cost me $20. I've already played and beaten a game that would have cost me $20. So it's like, all right, I'm already coming out on top here. So I get the idea behind it. I wish it was they just built those things in with bigger memory core, because every game that you download is like 50 gigabytes and you have a 250 gigabyte memory drive. It's like, oh, well, shit, that's it.
And we kind of knew that was going to be an issue going in. We even talked about that a little bit when we were going over the specs for each of the systems, where, we already could tell from last gen with PS4s, Xbox Ones, that, if you were doing a lot of digital games, whether that was indie titles or just downloading stuff rather than getting a physical version, that you were going to run out of space quickly. And that has come to pass. At least in this case, it's kind of understandable, because these are solid state drives and not just normal hard drives to accommodate all these faster load times and whatnot. So you understand going in like, okay, well, I at least get why, because that is much more expensive. If they wanted to sell this at a $300 price point, you're not putting in a gig or a terabyte, and you're not putting in more than that for damn sure. It is expandable. It's got the slot in the back where you could, if you wanted to, make the investment. At that point, it kind of raises the question, why not just get an X? But it is an option if down the road you decide that is something that you'd like to upgrade. Maybe over time you feel like it's earned.
The one thing that sucks about the S a little bit is, so obviously at a PS4, you could drop everything onto an external. External hard drive was like, $70? I think I got one on Amazon for, and everything just runs off of it without any problem. You can't do that and play the game on an external on the S. You have to put their specific memory unit in the back of it, which I'm sure people know. So that's kind of what sucks. I knew that going in, and I still just was like, it's fine. I'll just pull the games on and off as much as possible.
Well, and I think if you've kind of built that brand loyalty already, I've never had an Xbox. Yeah. And so the idea of getting an Xbox now, I don't have it. Like the old controllers, the Xbox One controllers work perfectly on your Xbox S. I don't have any. I have no Xbox controllers, period. I
Same.
think I maybe have an old 360 controller that I bought years ago. Maybe I have one laying around, but that's it. Like I don't have anything like that. So I would have to just buy all new controllers too. So it didn't help my case.
I mean, the whole reason like I went to Xbox in the first place is bluntly they're putting out a new Halo game, and I wanted to play it, and
Fair.
it was a $300 wait that I could use it for something else, but I just really wanted to play Halo, and obviously I downloaded all like the Halo Master Chief Collection and all that to play a bunch of the stuff I played in high school. So like that was pretty much the easy selling point, is that the multiplayer is going to be free on it, like they've put out, which I play a ton of like Warzone and things like that, and so it had a couple things here and there. It was like $300, like. It's weird because like I say that and it's like that's not that much money to me anymore as opposed to what it would have been
weird?
a long time ago. It just is a different feeling, I think, because the Switch is like the same price point. So I was like, I guess I look at it kind of similar to that.
Yeah. I'm still holding out for the PS5.
Yeah, and I'll still get one eventually. This has sort of lessened my interest for now. At the very least, I'm not like as actively checking the deals and whatnot, looking for one. If I see one, I'll still try and put it on my cart. It's happened a couple times this week. Hasn't worked out, but I'm at least not paying as much attention or as worried about it. And that's probably going to be the case until the PS5 gets some kind of title I can't live without. And I don't know what that's going to be. Persona 6? That's nowhere near release. So, like, I don't know what it's going to take.
That's exactly how I feel. Like right now, there's not some game out there like Cody with you and Halo.
Yeah.
It's like there's no game out there right now that I'm like, man, I am missing out by not playing this. Like, had Persona 5 been only on PS5 or something like that, they had waited, which would have sucked. But regardless, like if a game like that was only on PS5, and I'm like, well, all right, now I got to play this, then I'd be much more interested in it. But right now, I'm kind of like, I'll wait. There's nothing screaming at me.
So speaking of changing habits, the one other thing I want to say about this is we talked in advance about thinking that these increased, or I guess decreased, load times would be a big time of interest to me, and it is. It's I don't have to go into it a ton, but let me just put it this way. It is so different because after playing like cartridge games, NES, Super Nintendo, N64 growing up, I'd gotten used to, over the years, the idea of these longer load times to the point where there's a certain rhythm to it. Like, you boot up a game of the show and you go grab something to drink because you get like 40 seconds before that fucker's going to load. Or, you're in between scenes in an RPG and you're like, all right, cool. Well, I got some time here while this loads the world map back up. That's gone now. And it actually is noticeable in that it feels like my body's thrown off by it. Like I'm used to the idea of like, oh, okay, well, I'll check my phone and send this text. Oh, shit, it loaded already. What? What? I was supposed to text my mom. Oh, no. Like it is a dumb little thing to some extent, but it's also huge for me because, I can load up the system in like 5 seconds. I can jump into a game. And when my time is limited, that stuff adds up. It really does.
I believe it. Yeah, because I try to multitask in a lot of games too, like that, where it's like, okay, next level, let's check the phone, like make sure we have this done, or like, get a drink, like you said. Like, there's just little things you can do in the meantime that you can kind of multitask on during load times. And if you're just playing through with no load times, I guess you can knock out a game faster, or just have more efficiency in your gaming.
That's the one thing I noticed is, so I downloaded like GTA 5 and then been replaying that on the Xbox, which it's not even the newer version of it, which doesn't come out till I think December or November. But I'm just playing through what is the same enhanced version they put out on the PS4. Mm-hmm. Because the Xbox you just boot it right back up and you can load right into a game. I can walk up to my TV and turn it on, and I can play GTA, which obviously notoriously has the long load time at the start to get the map up. Mm-hmm. And because it's just kind of on in the back, like in the background, and the load time is so quick, I can turn that game on and play a mission and be done in like 15 minutes, which is unbelievable for like a game that obviously used to be really, really time consuming to sit through. And then so that I think that really blew me away too when I put that one on there. It was just like, this is incredible. I can get home, play a mission or two for a half hour, and then immediately be right done with it, and not sit through a 10-minute loading and then like a couple more minutes here and there.
How crazy is that if you think back to like Vice City, where you went to a different part of the map and had to load the different part of the map?
Yeah, and that's why I can't wait for whenever 6 comes out. I think I saw the news today that they're thinking like, I don't know, 2025 or 20 whatever. Who knows how long?
To play it by the time it comes out.
Yeah, exactly. However long it is, I'm assuming we're still going to be on this generation, and I'm like, I'm happy that I have a system to be able to eventually play that.
I'll play it on the PS6. It's fine.
And Elder Scrolls 6 is looking the same
Yeah.
way, where today Todd Howard was like, yeah, we're still in the planning stages. And I'm like, well, then why the fuck did you show a brief trailer 2 years ago? Because that sounds like that's not coming out for at least 3 more years, given the scope of the game. I mean, look how big Skyrim was, and you would expect this to be at least twice as big. So that was not exactly promising news either. It'll be interesting to see once actually we get these games that are developed specifically for these consoles. And I know there's not 0 of those at this point, but as we get more of them, just taking advantage of that ability should be pretty cool.
Yep.
All right, we said this was going to be a rapid-fire approach. These topics don't have almost anything to do with each other, but the hell with it. Cody wanted this one on the board. I put it on the board. Shaun will be disappointed not to be here. He's dead. It doesn't
shouldn't
matter.
have died. Yeah, shouldn't have died.
We're not going to spend a ton of time on Space Jam 2 because we're going to have to review it in a full episode once it comes out next month. We'll probably
Not
see it
looking
in
forward to
theaters.
that.
You're not looking
even
forward to
looking forward
reviewing it or the movie itself?
The movie itself, like not even close. Like not like I'm gonna hate watch it. That's for sure.
Will
Wow.
you take your children to watch it, or are you going to watch it on your own?
I'll probably watch it on my own because I don't want to cut your time, Cody, but like this movie, who is this for? Because I don't care about watching it. Like I grew up with the nostalgia of Space Jam, and I don't care about watching it. My kids don't know anything about Michael Jordan, Bugs Bunny, or anything like that because they haven't grown up watching Looney Tunes.
That means you're a bad parent and didn't show them Looney Tunes, so that's on you.
I don't know that kids nowadays have really watched much Looney Tunes at all.
So if Space Jam 2 had been LeBron in a cartoon world having to play basketball with Paw Patrol,
Yeah.
then we would have been onto something?
I really avoid my kids. I try to avoid having my kids watch Paw Patrol as much as I can. They've only watched it at my mom's house. They've never watched it at my house. So
The
fuck that
Dalmatian
show.
is a firefighter.
Okay.
Oh
Then-
no! Now if it was Bluey, on the other hand, that's a great kid show.
Mm.
What?
It's fantastic.
What?
No, it's really good. Actually, it's really good. But that's not what we're talking about here.
For a half second, I thought he said Louie, and I was like, I don't think Louie is a good kid
Did you
show.
say Kablooey?
That's going to make
No,
some
just-
awkward conversations.
Just Bluey. It's an Australian cartoon. It's great.
So you can't even watch American stuff. You have to go overseas to find cartoons for your children.
I'm telling you, watch that show. It's actually
you can just put on like some Coyote and Roadrunner and watch them crush each other back and forth, and that wasn't good enough for you.
I haven't even considered it, to be honest. I wish
I
I'd
am
thought.
glad that Roadrunner appears to be more prominent in this.
Yeah, he should be. He's got a lot of strength for the Toon Squad.
Mm-hmm. Good speed.
It does seem like he was underutilized when they would have used him.
I don't know. The whole game in the first Space Jam was everyone was underutilized. I mean, if Yosemite Sam can just take out his guns and shoot people, that was underutilized as well. So
Yeah, they took Roadrunner out of the equation, and then they were like, boy, what are these other people going to do? What's Granny going to do here? Oh, shit. Like, oh, man.
Doesn't she just get sat on?
she just sits in the corner and pops threes when she gets open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, respectable shooter. So Dave is rooting against the entire movie, but Cody put this on here because he's rooting against someone or something in particular.
LeBron. Specifically rooting against LeBron. Because the joke's been made multiple times on social media, but I'll just continue to hammer into the ground. The idea of LeBron losing with another super team, and obviously he's not going to lose, but the idea of him losing with a team he put together, and then that dumb little list they show in the trailer, that seems pretty funny. And so I'm going to go into it cheering for the Goon Squad, apparently, as they're now called. And was it Don Cheadle, I believe, is the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is very odd that he's the bad guy, but
It's
Yes,
not if you've seen his parody of the Captain Planet thing.
I have not.
Okay.
So
I
I
might
don't
need
know
to
what
watch
you're
that.
talking about.
Go check that out sometime. He's a very
Alright.
aggressive Captain Planet, let's just say.
Okay. He just, he's supposed to be, all good and all that crap in Marvel and stuff like that. So it just throws you off a little bit when he's an evil computer, whatever he is. I'm really curious if he's actually, should he just be Don Cheadle inside of a computer because it's, there's real life characters and all those type of things. I just wonder if he's actually himself.
No clue. I guess we'll find out.
You don't
we-
care.
We got to see the movie. Is that a real Ernie Johnson or is it a robot Ernie
Yeah,
Johnson?
exactly.
We don't know.
You don't know who Ernie
I-
Johnson's cheering for.
So it's funny you mentioned wanting LeBron to lose. Obviously, like you said, he's not going to lose. But I've wondered often, why he's even making this movie when he has had all the comparisons to Jordan forever. To me, if he wants is PR, this is like bad PR almost for his legacy because it is just another, oh, you're just doing what Jordan did. You're not blazing your own trail. You're not doing anything else. You're just doing what Jordan did. So if he's to win the game, that's expected. If they try to go for a twist and lose, it's like, oh, look, he couldn't even win in his movie. Like, as stupid as that is, but there's no upside for him in this movie. at all. And honestly, the previews look stupid, and his voice acting sounds terrible. So
It does seem like, because I mean, his one kid is already in high school. Obviously, it seems like he is a couple years late on this.
yeah,
That like, if they were gonna make it, he should have done it for like quote unquote for his kids a little bit earlier on than when one of them has already reached high school. Because like you said, this movie's not for high school kids. You don't really know who is actually supposed to go watch it. I mean, it's probably going to draw plenty of money, but I am really fascinated by how bad it actually. I mean, it really could be.
yeah. I mean, the trailers don't give me much hope.
Trailers can often be misleading or
They
bad,
can.
so it's hard to say for sure. I'm with you that they haven't been great. And I do think that to a certain extent, LeBron is savvy enough to realize that even if he comes up short on the comparisons to Jordan, the constant nature of them ends up helping his brand in the long run because he's always on people's minds. I'm not necessarily saying that's the way he should go about it, but I think there's something to be said for it because it inevitably comes up. There was always the Kobe and LeBron or the Kobe and Jordan comparisons, but like those died down even before Kobe died because it was clear that he was not on the same level as a Michael Jordan. He was a good player, a really good player, an all-time great, but he wasn't a top 5 guy. And there's a handful of people who'd say he was, but he was not, clearly. LeBron is. No matter where you put him, he's clearly a top 5 all-time player right now. You might not have him number 1, who cares, but being compared to Jordan all the time means it's brand awareness. It's his name being out there.
This is a dumb question, but obviously he just changed his number again. What number is he wearing in the movie? I'm curious if he changed his number as like a is he wearing 6? I think is what he changed it to.
Yep.
Or whatever. Like I was wondering, is he wearing that in like the movie and he's trying to like brand that at the same time? I don't know. That sounds crazy, but it just seemed like it was weird.
Actually seems right up his alley. Exactly. And it's funny because I've spent a long time defending LeBron in a lot of ways. This past year or two have really kind of made me change my tune a little bit on him because I think he's had some horrible PR tactics, or he's maybe had really good PR tactics in the past, and now it's his real personality is coming out. I don't know which one it is.
Uh,
I think you're realizing that there's a lot more in common between Jordan and LeBron than either side would ever care to admit.
Yeah, no, you're right, and I don't know. Maybe it's just my own personal bias of when he played against the Suns and was just a total ass. But
No, he seems like he's extra crotchety as he's getting
yeah,
older.
he does.
Like
He
that's
does.
definitely seems like what's getting like starting to get toward him. I mean, it's not the same thing, but like, I mean, I only have a little bit to go off, but like Garnett felt like that. Like as Garnett got older, he just seemed to like be more of a jackass. And maybe his PR and his just like personality was fine when he was in Minnesota, but then when he gets to Boston in the late part of his career, he just seemed like a jackass. So maybe that's just me imagining it, but
He
that's
was
why.
always a jackass.
Okay, exactly. And I just didn't realize he was a jackass until, he actually showed it up a little bit more, but
Yeah,
I'm trying to see if Jordan actually wore 23 in the movie.
he did.
he did. He did.
Who did?
That's what I thought, and I can't seem to find a picture of it. Every fucking picture of him's from the front.
I'm fairly certain he did.
Maybe he wore 45 actually.
Like, I see bootleg replica jerseys that are 23 in the back, but I'm trying to find a shot of him in the movie wearing 23.
But like Jordan Space Jam huddle. Like when he's in the huddle, everyone, he's like leaning over at that one point.
Because I think they would have had to have retired 23 from the Toon Squad
Right?
rafters. Like,
Right?
I don't think it should be free for LeBron to wear, even if he was at the time.
Did all of them actually have numbers? Because I've watched this movie a lot of times now, and it's not like I can remember what number Bugs was wearing.
I can't remember off the top of my head. All I remember is the front of the jersey with the logo, and that's about it.
Because the Monstars
Here we
didn't
go.
have numbers.
If this is to be believed, the Toon Squad's jersey numbers were Tweety Bird wore 1/2, Bugs Bunny was 1, Daffy Duck was 2, 3 was the mouse,
That does sound
Sniffles the
familiar.
mouse,
Yeah.
6 Yosemite Sam, 7 Roadrunner, 8 Porky Pig, 9 Sylvester, 10 Lola, 13 Wile E. Cody, 22 was Bill Murray, 23 was Michael Jordan, 25 was the Barnyard Dog, spelled with a W, 33 was Foghorn Leghorn, 53 was Elmer Fudd, a heart symbol for Pepe Le Pew, an exclamation point for the Tasmanian Devil, and a question mark for Beaky Buzzard.
So, I mean, there were no fouls in that game. But if there had been, how are you going to call a foul on Taz? What's the hand gesture for? I don't.
For
What do you-
Pepe Le Pew is this.
Mm-hmm. That's an easy one, yeah.
That's two.
So I
On the
guess,
heart?
yeah. I mean, I that means that if LeBron, I mean, he can't wear 23 because that's Jordan's number and it's got to be retired. I'm assuming, in the lore, and he's gonna have to ask Yosemite for number 6 because it's in use.
Somebody's got guns.
And he's got a fucking gun. So best of luck, LeBron. Anyway, Space Jam 2 coming out in 3 weeks. We're gonna watch it. We'll review it. We'll see if it's any good. We'll rip into it if it's not. We'll rip into it if it is. It's Because it's not like the first one's a masterpiece. It's just a fun, enjoyable romp that Michael Jordan.
It's actually a pretty bad movie.
It's pretty terrible, but sometimes terrible movies are still good.
That's one of my favorite articles I ever read was Zach Lowe, a prominent NBA writer, who had never watched Space Jam as a kid, did like a breakdown of it as he watched it as an adult, and he's like, "What is this?"
Mm-hmm. And we talked about the box score the last time we talked about Space Jam 2. It's a nightmare. So we'll watch it though. We'll let you know.
Again, at least Bill Murray was good in it. I'll say that. I'll gladly say that I thought Bill Murray was entertaining for his like 3 scenes.
Larry Bird was good in it.
Yeah.
His like 2 scenes.
His 1 appearance.
No selling Michael Jordan's disappearance into a golf hole. He's just like, I don't know, man. All right. From Basketball Jesus, that's a different movie. That's fine.
Jesus,
I was trying to segue. Yeah. I haven't really
crotchety old players.
James Conrad's only like 32 or something, I think. I suppose. Oh, here comes a rabbit dog.
Hello.
She has not seen Cody yet, so this is exciting.
We're fine.
She's too excited.
I'm a professional.
All right, he's a professional.
It's part of my audition.
That's true. You have to be ready to fend off anything, including dog attacks. I haven't talked about it a ton on the show, but I've been playing a lot of disc golf the last couple of years, and I'm actually playing in a tournament next weekend. We'll see how that goes. And over the last weekend, the World Championships were held for the PDGA, biggest tournament of the year. It's the one that everybody holds as the standard. Like golf has the 4 majors, and they're all relatively equal in importance. Same with like tennis. There's a couple other big annual disc golf tournaments, including a U.S. one, but none rise to the level of this. This is the one that builds your legacy. And in that tournament was one of the best highlights I've ever seen. Just because of the stakes and the magnitude of what happened and the unlikelihood of it. If you haven't seen it, you should go watch it now before I describe it, but I'll do it for those who are not going to go check out the clip. If you just search for James Conrad, it takes like a minute. It will not be long. I thought about trying to show it here, but we don't really have the rights to it, and that's kind of questionable. So, also, it's bad radio. Essentially, James Conrad is down 1 on the 18th hole to 5-time world champion Paul Macbeth. Macbeth is searching for his 6th title. The all-time leader has like 10 or 11, Ken Climo, but still, he's widely considered to be the best player of his generation. He's like the Tiger Woods of this era, to put it in more familiar terms. Conrad throws a bad tee shot on 18. It hits a tree after it crosses about 300 feet worth of water, kicks backwards towards the edge of the water, but stays in bounds. So Macbeth knows, okay, this guy's got to get one shot better than me on this hole no matter what happens. If he gets a birdie and I get a par, that's at least a playoff. If I get a birdie, he's screwed. If I take a par and he takes a bogey, he's screwed, right? Like par, he's screwed. All those scenarios, Conrad's got to be one better. His second shot, he has to lay up because he can't get a running start. The water's behind him, so he can't get enough distance to get to the hole. So already he knows, like, at best, I'm probably taking a par because I have to lay up my second shot and then throw my third from about 250 feet out. So seeing that and being further up the fairway than him, Macbeth also lays up his second shot because there's OB around this entire green. It's about a 15-foot wide fairway, and then it opens up just to the circle, which is 30 feet around the basket. And then Conrad throws in his third shot. Around the corner into the sun, can't see the pin from there. It's behind a tree and there's a bright sun in his face. Just casually throws in his putter on this left to right arc from about 250 feet out and forces a playoff, and then wins on the first playoff hole because he parks it next to that basket off the tee and Macbeth throws it in the water. And it's just pandemonium. Like, it's people are calling it the best disc golf shot of all time. I think given the stakes and all that. I mean, this was the highest paying purse ever in disc golf. First place won like 16 grand or something, which I know is, tiddlywinks compared to the PGA Tour, but it was fascinating to watch, and you guys both saw the clip. What did you think?
I mean, the funny thing is, I just pulled up a video and didn't know the context behind it, and I said, wow, it's a really good shot. I mean, I've seen longer shots go in before. it looks really good. It's weird that it's the greatest shot ever. And then I read the context, I'm like, holy shit, that's pressure. That's... I don't know how to describe that in other sports terms. I guess it's the closest thing to compare it to is back in the 60s, Jerry West hit a half-court shot to tie the game to send it to overtime in the finals. Like, that's probably about the closest thing you can compare it to.
I mean, hockey's had a handful of goals in, like, clinching games, either forced overtime or, it's sudden death in overtime, so it's kind of hard to, like, every one of those goals matters. But there's been a handful of scenarios like this, buzzer beaters in different sports. It reminded me of the U.S.'s goal in the World Cup. What was that, 8 years ago? With the
Algeria.
counterattack that led to Donovan's.
That was 11 years ago now. I think it was 2010.
Yeah.
No.
I think it's Algeria. It's Algeria, right?
I think so. So that got them like a crucial extra win in pool play, and
Yep.
you know, so
Extra
something like
guy.
that where it's unexpected because it seems like, especially after that tee shot, you're like, God, I mean, he has to throw it in, and he's not going to throw it in. Like even the pros, you're not making 250-foot shots that often. You're just not. Conrad actually had a hole-in-one on the first round of this very same tournament on the hole that was the first playoff hole. There was one of 3 aces for the whole tournament, and there weren't that many throw-ins from this length either. Like, you know, a field of 200 players playing 5 rounds, and you have maybe 5 shots like this, and one of them happened to be on the last hole with the guy in second to force a playoff against Macbeth, who birdied 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. He did everything right. So people, now nobody was really saying like he choked, but he did everything right, and he was smart because again, this fairway is tiny. If you miss the shot, and it happened in the women's side, the leader there, Paige Pierce, also a 5-time champion, came in with a 1-shot lead, laid up her second shot, threw the approach out of bounds, and lost on 18 because this green is tiny. He played it right, and it just took a spectacular shot to beat him.
Yeah, that is one of those things. It's like, look, he's got to hit one of the greatest shots in history to beat me. So I'm gonna take this easy, not screw up, and just go home with my win because 999 times out of 1,000, you win that thing. And except this one.
I mean, like digging through like football on the football side of it, like the only thing I can think of, and being a Patriots fan, it stands out, is the interception at the goal line to win the to clinch the Super Bowl. Like that, again, I just know that because it happened recently, and it's one of my teams, and I was lucky enough to be there for it. But like I can't think of anything else like in digging through football that is anywhere near the same. Because like if it's in the context of being the biggest championship you can have in your sport, you can't even really do basketball or hockey. I mean, maybe hockey and basketball, it has to be a game 7, but like if it's not really winner take all, it's not really the same kind of vibe. And I mean, because like I stumbled across this like just scrolling through Twitter, and I was like, oh shit, like hopefully that gets on SportsCenter, which it did. I mean, I think it got on Van Pelt's show. Mm-hmm. I was like, that's kind of good for a sport that people probably don't take overly seriously. And obviously, like I've had a ton of fun since Chris introduced me to it, like going out and playing it. I'm like, that's really helpful to get that. It's probably never going to happen in the same way again. I mean, it's really hard to replicate. But it just seemed like it was great publicity for it in general to have that. And I'm glad that it got picked up as widely as it did, because like you said, Dave, without the context, you're like, oh, it's pretty impressive. He threw it really far and he hit it in. But thankfully, like they gave it the context when it actually gets onto TV. So people are kind of forced to hear it a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. And the crowd reaction doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
Like crowd reactions are like my kink, if I will. Like seeing awesome crowd reactions to things it just gives me goosebumps every time. Like it's so awesome. And so that crowd reaction to his shot with people literally rushing onto the fairway is awesome. Yeah. I did enjoy that.
Everybody around the green, not in the grandstands, but everybody around the green on the back and the left of it is like pros. And they're as surprised and as into it as anybody else is. And even Macbeth has to give him like a fist bump. Because, I mean, he's a consummate pro, and he has to respect the fact that it was an excellent shot. And to a certain extent, I think it helps his legacy, too. Yes, he doesn't have the 6th world title, but that's what it took for him to lose here. And he handled it with grace. And, again, even after he threw it in the water on 16 on the first playoff hole, he, again, dapped up James. It was like, congratulations, that was awesome. And it was like, that's one of the things I like about disc golf in general. It's pretty laid back. Yes, the stoner vibes. Yes, the jokes apply, and they're pretty accurate most of the time. But even when I'm playing, like it's the least competitive I've been in any sport I've gotten serious about. I just kind of enjoy doing it. Even if I'm in a tournament setting, I'm just kind of like, this is fun. I'm rooting for other people on my card to do well. Like I don't get that in other stuff that's more head to head.
Yeah, that reminds me, like the losing with grace actually gets you a lot of this gets you a lot of good vibes for going forward when people remember it. I'm trying to remember, I can't remember the pitcher's name that got robbed.
Andres Galarraga.
Andres Galarraga, yeah. Got robbed of his perfect game. It's funny because more people remember him for that than other people who have had perfect games. And part of that was the way he reacted to it. Now, later on in his career, he kind of turned into an asshole. I guess he probably always was. But in that moment, at least, he gave the ump a shot, like a sly look, like, really? Like, he didn't get mad. He didn't throw things around. He just went out and got the next out, and then the next day, like, handed him the lineup card. The umpire, Jim Joyce was very, I know, very emotional about it, but everyone remembered that scene for how everyone reacted to it. So the fact that the guy who was going to win this whole tournament and cement a legacy as one of the best disc golfers ever said, you know what, that, like, good shot, buddy, it brings those good vibes in, which is awesome.
Even like the other competitors on the card, there's an angle where you can see Calvin Heimberg, who's on the final card, and he's like a mouth agape, everybody's just super excited for him. And it helps that James seems to be one of the nicest guys on tour. So, it's one of those where there's a couple players that nobody likes where I don't think there would have been quite this reaction. It still would have been because it's such a huge shot. But somebody like him, his first world title, he's been working hard. He won a U.S. title a couple of years ago. Like, it's just a feel-good moment. And like you said, I think more people are going to remember Galarraga's near-perfect game than they will half the other perfect games that have happened, especially nowadays in the modern MLB where a no-hitter or a perfect game happens every fucking week. Something like that is etched in my memory with him and Joyce a lot more than... I mean, who's the guy who either no-hit us or perfect game us in 2002 when Randy Johnson threw like a one-hitter himself? St. Louis Cardinals, I think. Jose Jimenez?
Jose Jimenez, yes, that's it.
Like, that one sticks out to me just because Johnson threw it so well, right? But I couldn't name more than one or two of the no-hitters that happened last season in MLB.
So I was going to throw out, like, do you remember Dallas Braden? Do you remember that name?
I do remember Dallas Braden.
Yeah. That's a random name of who
I don't remember why I remember it, because he got mad at somebody for something during his perfect game, I thought.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Although now perfect games and no-hitters aren't going to happen as much because they're stripping pitchers at the mound.
Well, you don't know that.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
I don't know. Max Scherzer with his literally taking his belt off was pretty funny.
That was pretty good. I mean, I have nothing against Scherzer, and he was being a little obnoxious, if I'm being honest, but it was pretty funny to watch him be like, fine, I'll undress. Do you want to keep calling these checks on me? This is the third time. Fine, here's my belt.
And then
pants are coming off.
And then Sergio Romo decided to, like, top that and actually pulled down his pants a couple hours later because he, you need to get on TV.
And then they do it to Ohtani, and Ohtani's like, this is fun. Yeah, sure, check me out. I don't know. I'm not hiding anything. All right, our final topic is another sports one, and we're only going to touch on this briefly because we almost sort of are contractually obligated to. The Suns are still in the Western Conference Finals as of recording. They're still up 3-2. It doesn't necessarily feel that way because we've squeaked out 3 wins. I mean, you can argue Game 1 was pretty convincing.
Game 1 was convincing.
But our other 2 wins are not exactly the most confidence building, and the 2 losses have been relatively bad overall. So just our impressions of the series as we head into a Game 6 that will have already happened by the time this airs. But what the hell? Let's put some stuff out there and see how wrong we can be.
DeAndre Ayton needs the ball more.
So, okay.
Comparatively to what happened in Game 5. I don't think he got the ball enough.
I will say that. However, I will say that the Clippers did a very good job in ensuring that our feeds to him didn't work the way they did in Game 1 and 2, because what we did in Game 1 and 2 was penetrate the lane and then find Ayton trailing the play. Mm-hmm. And I've heard so much on social media, local sports talk radio, about people saying, well, we got to give Ayton the ball. You got to feed him. I'm like, he's not that type of player. He's not Hakeem Olajuwon that you just give him the ball and get out of the way. Like, that's not the type of player he is. I agree that we should probably try to draw up a few more sets for a few more lobs or things like that, but not just, all right, give him the ball, clear out. That doesn't work.
No, I mean, there's back and forth to it. Like, and they make an adjustment to you make an adjustment to them. It's just that would be what I would look at and be like, okay, they're going to have to find more creative ways to get him the ball. Because what was working before, the Clippers adjusted to. Without having Zubac, or whatever you pronounce his damn name, Zubacic, I don't care. They got more creative, I think, in defending him. Like you said, in that game, you just have to make an adjustment back to that. And that's what stands out the most. Where I'm not a Suns fan, you guys are, but I wouldn't really be panicking. Like I don't think there's any huge reason to worry.
I think Paul George had a game that shows why he's considered a superstar, or borderline superstar at least. I don't think he is this type of superstar that can have a second game like that necessarily. Maybe I'm wrong. Marcus Morris is not a superstar and had a borderline superstar game and will not do that again. So that's part of the thing I'm happy about. I know we'll make adjustments so we don't get book isolated on him in the post frequently, because that was a big problem. And overall, I think if the Suns just have better ball movement and get back to the 0.5 offense instead of Chris Paul dribbling the shot clock out, I think we're going to do just fine. But the past couple games, for whatever reason, it seems like Booker and Chris Paul have been kind of just taking the air out of the ball on top of the key, and it's not our game.
A lot of that, I think, is from the Clippers' defensive pressure, and they're really overplaying both in the passing lanes and on defenders on the perimeter. And I think they need to be more aggressive about more of these back flare screens, more back cuts, find the weaknesses in the defense. We seemed to figure out their zone in the fourth quarter, which gave us some fits in the first half when they deployed it at that point. I mean, there was that stretch where we got the game down to 2, where we were getting like anything we wanted, carving them up inside, a couple open looks for 3. There were some reasons to be optimistic. You have to hope that at some point, it's really the defense from Game 5 that was the biggest issue for me.
Me too.
Because you can weather a short Cousins storm. We did in Game 1, where he goes off for a little bit, and then he hurts himself by like fouling 4 times in a minute. You know, those things are going to happen as part of the DeMarcus Cousins experiment. And you can live with Marcus Morris shooting contested 20-footers, even if he's going to make some of them. And he was 3 of 9 after that 6 of 6 start. So even he came back down to earth. And Paul George is going to have a game or two where he goes off, but he can't be 10 of 12 in the second half after you've already taken 2 different punches from Morris and Cousins in the first half. That's too much to overcome. And I even said it when we were watching the game live. When they cut it to 2, it's like, this isn't enough. And you hate to see it, but it happens a lot in the NBA where a team does make a run to get back in it, and then they're out of steam because it took everything they needed to erase that 15 to 20 point deficit they created for themselves.
Yeah, falling behind 20-5 to start the game was the absolute worst thing that happened. You're playing from behind and playing desperate. Not even desperate. You're playing from behind the entire game. I will say I thought that when we took the lead, because we took the lead by 1 point, it was 62-61 at one point. I thought that was it. The crowd was getting into it. It finally gave the crowd a reason to cheer and get loud, because the Clippers did a great job of taking the crowd out of the game. The crowd was really not a factor in Game 5 for the first time, really, this entire playoffs.
Which is tough when you're in a clinching game like that. Finally at home after all this time.
And the crowd was ready to explode. Like when we took the lead, the crowd did explode, and they were going like early in the game when it got down to 20-5. The crowd actually got up and started cheering, like, "Come on, guys, let's get going," that type of thing. But we just can't fall down that quickly, and then not allow somebody like Marcus Morris or DeMarcus Cousins to beat us anymore. Like, we can play better on defense. We can not make sure that we don't allow the Clippers to dictate who's guarding who by switches and things like that. I think we just have to play a better game plan of how we're going to defend the team, and we'll be fine. Because the defense, to me, was the big issue. The offense wasn't the issue in this game.
I think the run especially hurt at the start of the game because it took all the wind out of the sails. I mean, like you mentioned, the crowd was sort of removed from the equation early because in addition to the Morris spree, they were also just giving up basically uncontested layups, either in transition or in half-court sets where the original defender was getting blown by. So it wasn't even just that we were giving up points, it was how easy it was, and it led to the Clippers having such an advantage in points in the paint despite not playing a big. So that, to me, is, I think, fixable because we don't have the same issues the Jazz had in Game 6 where Gobert was nigh unplayable. It wasn't like they were exploiting Ayton for this run or anything. It was really just more the on-ball defense wasn't good enough, and they need to know which players they're taking away and which ones they weren't. They did a better job of that even in just the second half, and then George went off. So, I mean, this is the danger of when you fuck around with teams that are inferior to you. And the Clippers, in this form, with these injuries, are inferior to the Suns. But it doesn't matter, and that's why you play the games. If you take them lightly, you're giving them time to get healthier, you're giving them time to have fluke wins, or you're giving them time to have a hot shooting performance, and then you lose.
Also, fuck Pat Beverly. He is now on the S tier of Bruce Bowen and Robert Horry for me. Like, those were always my 2 most hated players, and Pat Beverly is on that. I've always despised him as a player. I think he is flat out dirty and intentionally injures people. Look at Russell Westbrook a few years ago. I think that the type of thing he does has no place in basketball, and the fact that he gets away with the little stuff all the time that then escalates into big stuff is unfathomable to me that the NBA doesn't do anything about it. The fact is, yes, he got a flagrant call for taking out Chris Paul's legs, which I don't think was actually the right call. I don't think it should have been a flagrant. I think he should have absolutely been called for a technical foul for mocking him. And I think that's a failure on the NBA's part not to control that type of thing.
It's difficult with him because you could call him for a foul almost every play.
And they should.
You could call him for 4 technicals a game, which is technically not possible because he'd be ejected after the first 2. Like, it's constant asshole-ish behavior. And to me, he's actually, like, forget recency bias. He's a rung above an Horry or a Bruce Bowen to me because in addition to being an asshole with his physical nature on the court and undercutting people and hurting them a lot, he's also a demonstrative little bitch. He's like the worst part of Bruce Bowen combined with the worst part of Tim Duncan.
And then he tries to dap you up after and be like, we're cool, right? Everything's fine,
Exactly.
right?
That to me is like the most two-faced thing. Like you want to be, and it's all part of the psychological stuff with him. So it's not like it's unintentional, or it's not like he's trying to be contrite. He's not. He's using that to try and get in people's heads more. But I don't know. It's weird to think about how you could officiate him differently, but it's certainly a factor in why Booker was so bad in game 2 and 3.
I just don't understand how somebody who has a tendency of being this physical and could be called for a foul every time down the court doesn't just get called for a foul every time down the court until he changes his way. Like, why is it that type of player is allowed to do this type of thing? I understand that you don't want to foul every time down the court, but don't foul.
I mean, they're afraid to actually enforce it. I mean, that's
what I can't figure out, because he is going to injure people. He has and will continue to injure people.
Actively has, yeah.
Yes.
That's why this is so frustrating. And again, maybe the Suns have already won the series by the time this airs, and it's in the past, and we can forget about it. But I was telling maybe Shaun, or maybe it was our text thread, I almost want the Clippers to lose more than I want the Suns to win, and I love the Suns. Because I don't want Rajon Rondo and DeMarcus Cousins and Marcus Morris and Patrick Beverley to be rewarded for being giant dicks.
Yeah, it's the Suns and the Clippers right now are the antithesis of basketball to me. I mean, at least what the Suns have been has been ball movement, team that likes each other, fun, free-flowing team, and the Clippers are just punch you in the face.
Yeah, well, we've had trouble with teams like that in the past, because we've had other teams that were fun, and like the the last Nash era Suns, for example, had that bench unit where everybody loved each other and it was all happy-go-lucky, and they played an exciting style of basketball, and then they got punched in the mouth and never recovered. And the Spurs punched us in the mouth a few times, and one time literally in the nose, and it just was a headbutt. You know what I mean, though.
I think it unfortunately fits the Clippers just as a franchise to have this whole group of players. I feel like gathered together, just because, I mean, the Clippers' whole history of being kind of picked on and useless and really invisible for the most part. To have this type of team be their quote unquote best team in franchise history, it just seems kind of like fitting. Like you had to resort to this type of shit because you couldn't succeed in any other way, as you gather up a lot of these guys who are just insufferable. I mean, it stretches. I mean, you talked about the other three, but like obviously Paul George has a fascinating back and forth where people either can't stand him or you begrudgingly respect him, and that's what I look forward to in these last two games. Is like one way or the other, Paul George is either going to be like everyone's going to have to shut up about a lot of the criticism of him, or it's going to get so much worse and it's going to get so entertaining.
He at least has an out. With Kawhi not in this series, he at least is shielded from the majority of the hatred for this. But we saw in game 2, he's certainly not going to be immune to it.
He'll still get some.
It's actually the most annoying thing of all, I think, is that in some ways I would rather have more Kawhi and more Serge Ibaka and Zubac not missing a game, because I actually like those guys. I mean, Kawhi's whatever to me. He's so bland out there that other than his play, I don't really know how you latch onto him or hate him one way or the other. But, I don't hate him like I do 4 members of the Clippers who are in the rotation of their 8 guys right now, or 7. So, it's tough right now. It's tough on these streets. Reggie Jackson's cool. What a great story. I'm proud of him for really stepping it up.
Yeah. I will give credit to Mike Breen for one of the greatest calls in history of Kawhi Leonard going crazy when he's just sitting there doing this. Mm-hmm. Like, the Clippers had cut the lead.
He leaned forward. That was crazy for him.
Yeah, it was. He's just sitting in the suite, and I can't understand Kawhi Leonard. He's already been ruled out for Game 6. We've known this, but he is not traveling with his team, not sitting with his team. Let's assume, in the past, because this game already happened by the time it airs, that the Clippers lose. Does Kawhi Leonard come back? Because he's a free agent. He can leave and really screw them over. So I don't know what to think of that.
Yeah, we'll have to write his obituary once it's been finished. I don't know that he's going to leave, because I think he wants to play in LA and he's not going to go to the Lakers. So
yeah,
I think he'll stay. I don't think he's in any huge risk, but it's possible. Like, he could leave after this season. It's certainly possible. And then the Clippers have 0 draft picks for the next 8 years, and it's like, oh shit.
The way I look at it is, obviously we joke about how his his look was up in the box. If he really is that kind of just like mellowed out and quiet, I don't know if I'd want him on the bench. I feel like he'd get criticized more on the bench for not being in the game and being annoying on the bench, like certain other people who've been annoying on the bench in the playoffs in different series have been. Maybe it's just a defense mechanism. You go up top there. People in the NFL do that. Injured guys are up in the box with the owners and things like that, rather than being down courtside. I just wonder if the vibe of it would look off if he's just kind of like disconnected on the bench and where he can just disconnect all the way up top.
You might be right.
Like maybe Kawhi is really good in the locker room. Maybe he is a standout leader and helping to break down the film sessions. And I don't know. That's not really what people have said about him who've played with him. But we're not around all the time. But during the games, it does feel like a bad look. It's also one of the least of my concerns right now. So I mean, whatever. If they want to keep him up there, up in faraway land, that's fine. Whatever.
It's fine.
Maybe they're worried Patrick Beverley is going to throw someone into the bench and into him, and then he'll get injured.
That's true.
Even further.
I mean, I would prefer Patrick Beverley to get injured in that instance if somehow he hurts himself.
As he's throwing a body.
I was telling Shaun, I'm not super proud of this, but that's the one dude I actually want to get hurt.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think I said that I know it would end up with me with a black eye and destroyed because he kicked my ass, but I want to punch him in the face, and I'll take the heat from it. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. I'm almost stuttering because it's frustrating to me because I don't like that sentiment in sports. I don't like when fans bring that to the table. But in this particular case, the number of dudes he's hurt or almost hurt, to me, is almost like a bounty on his head. This dude, we will never know exactly how Russell Westbrook's career might have been different if he doesn't get basically his knee blown out by Pat Beverley when he's trying to call a timeout in a nothing play.
Yeah.
And people, he's just hustling. No, that's a dirty ass play.
It is.
And he lost a year of his career and some of his explosiveness to that. And I hate Russell Westbrook, but not to the point where I want him to ever get hurt. I just don't like him as a player. Pat Beverley, if somebody hits him with a lead pipe in between game 5 and 6 and he doesn't play tomorrow night / last night, fine.
If Patrick Beverley goes missing, you know who to look for.
Yeah.
Or in hindsight.
This does feel relatively admissible, yes.
It's one of those things that, it doesn't have a place in sports, but I want Frank Kaminsky to come in and clothesline him.
And Marcus Morris was a god-awful son, maybe assaulted a guy in Phoenix. The charges were eventually dropped. But
that was Markeith.
Yeah, and he was still around for that, and there was still an incident, and he didn't look very good in it. Was disgruntled his whole time here, never played all that well for us, has a very punchable face, just not a very good guy. I still don't want him to get hurt.
No.
At any point have I ever been like, God, I wish somebody would just take out his knee or something. And Marcus Morris is one of my least favorite NBA players. Only Patrick Beverley has risen to that level, and it was before this series. But now, 5/6 games of this to this point have worn on me, and I'm sure that's the case for other teams that have encountered him too.
Can I take this opportunity to give another screw you to Luka Doncic for not knocking this team out? You had every opportunity, you asshole.
Well,
you didn't really want that.
The Clippers didn't have the breaks the Suns did, except Doncic got hurt in Game 3, and lo and behold, the series changed in that game, and then they didn't play against a healthy Donovan Mitchell or any Mike Conley until Game 6. But it's fine. We're the only ones who got lucky.
Yeah. But we would have, the Lakers and Clippers would be playing each other if everybody was healthy, and, it would just be, everything by the book if everyone was healthy, because that's how sports always goes.
Mm-hmm.
I hate these people.
By the way, last thing I'll say on that is it's funny to watch some Clippers fans. Most of them have been pretty good over the course of this series from what I've seen with their interactions, but a handful of them are calling out the luckiness, and it's like, y'all could have played some of these teams if you hadn't been bitches and lost intentionally at the end of the season. You controlled your fate to go through that part of the bracket. We did not. We were trying for the 1 seed. We won out and didn't make it. So I don't need to hear it about whatever path you ended up in. You chose your path.
You could have played us last round. They could have very easily been the 3 seed and played us last round. Mm-hmm. Easily. And decided not to.
Yeah, and guess what? They would have had a healthy Kawhi for part of that then. Or
weird.
All of it. Who knows?
And then they'd be playing, the Jazz or the Nuggets. I think that's an easier matchup for them.
You would just trade out one of the teams on each side. That's all. It's the only difference that would have happened.
To be perfectly clear, I don't even necessarily begrudge them for doing it. It's somewhat smart, even though it is kind of a bitch move. It's savvy to be like, hey, we can do this and end up on this part of the bracket. So I don't really hate the idea of it. Just own the fact that you did that. That's all. Own your cowardice, and then that's fine.
This is why in the playoffs, if you're the 1 seed, you should just get to pick who you play. No, don't seed this shit. Just have a draft all the way down, and you just pick your opponent, and teams can't duck each other. They're just going to get picked at some point.
I I kind of love this idea because it not only allows you to pick your teams if you're the one seed and gives you that extra incentive to get those top seeds, it also gives the team that got
against
picked
you.
that extra motivation.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Oh,
I
you
don't know.
wanted us, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if you could do it for the full playoffs. It almost sounds
No.
like too much chaos. But Zach Lowe's been a proponent of doing it for the play-in game, letting the top
for
seed
sure.
choose between the two that have basically qualified out of what becomes the 7 and 8.
Yeah.
And that would be interesting because it also lets them have the choice to avoid a team that might be like hot but in the 8 spot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if like Golden State had made it to the play-in game as the 8 seed and faced Utah in the first round, Utah coming like, you know what? Actually, we'll take the Lakers, which they wouldn't have done. But you know,
I've complained about this in baseball because you automatically have to play the wild card, and it's going to happen in the National League this year. You're gonna the number 1 seed's going to play the second best team because the wild card's going to come from the same division. I'm like, why do you have to do that? If you're the 1 seed, you should just get to pick who you want to play.
yeah. It's especially punitive because not only is that team better, but it's a division rival you've already seen 19 times over the course of the season. You're like, I don't want them again. Come on.
Like the full 16 team playoff for NHL and NBA doesn't work that same way. But there's certain instances where I'm like, it would be a fun thing. I really love the idea of just giving sports talk radio just hours of things to discuss. And they're like, oh my God, they picked that team. They called that team out.
The NFL has this perfectly set up since they already reseed. I don't understand why the top seed can't pick who they want to play out of the division.
Football's where the idea, like I think I originally, like when I was a kid, was like, this seems like a good idea. Yeah. We started doing it in our fantasy football league. In the playoffs, you just get to pick. So you have like, once you get past the 2 play-ins, if it's there's 4 teams left, this top seed gets to pick who they want to play. And it has people have won championships because they've ducked the team who had people that were hurt. Because that time of the year, someone's hurt and they were a 2 seed, but now they're not that good. All that, this type of stuff. And it's way more fun. I'm sure they'll never actually get near in doing that.
I would say if that existed, I don't think the Cardinals would have made the Super Bowl the year they did because the Giants would have played the Cardinals that year and the Cardinals would have lost in New York that year.
Probably. And you know what? There's too many egos and too many hurt feelings in the NBA to ever fully explore this, I think. I mean, they won't even show us. Well, I guess this year we did see the order that people were selected in the All-Star game, right? Yep. But we haven't always seen that because it was worried about, well, what if whatever All-Star gets picked last is hurt feelings? So I don't know. Because, even if they did implement that system, and they won't, that it would then be just the most generic quotes about why they chose somebody, like, oh, well, it was just a team that we thought was the best matchup for us, but they're a good team and we respect them. And no, I want the hatred. I want the vitriol. I want the Pat Beverleys. I want their kneecaps broken. So, that is the end of the episode. Let us know in the comments how Cody did, if he's a longtime fixture, if Shaun is permanently dead, which he is. He is.
He's dead.
We will have a show next week. We're going to take a week off later in July because we're all going to be in Phoenix. Dave is always in Phoenix. You know what I mean. So we'll do a show the week of the 4th. So July 8th, next Thursday, is the next episode. At that point, it's either going to be talking about the Suns in the NBA Finals or a season wrap.
Or I'm just going to cry for an hour straight, basically.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll do a recap of the season, at least not that week. If they do get eliminated by the Clippers, that means they're going to have lost in 7, and I don't want to talk about it.
No, I will not want to talk about it for a while. Like, it'll have to be, okay, we're going to do a season preview. Also, now we're going to touch on the fact that we lost in the conference finals with that bitch-ass team because I'll be pissed. So.
Yeah, because we'll have to go through the process at some point. We need to grieve. We need to get the therapeutic nature out of it. But...
7 steps, whatever that is.
Right. We can't just keep it bottled up forever.
I look forward to you guys potentially being Bucks or Hawks fans. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, that's definitely going to happen.
You're going to cheer for whoever it is. You're not cheering for the Clippers.
This has been such a roller coaster because fuck the Lakers. But then the Nuggets, they're cool and they're not even 100%, so you can't really be that mad at them. And most of their guys are pretty nice overall. Then fuck the Clippers, and then I don't really have any hatred for either the Bucks or the Hawks.
Oh, you will though.
I'll hate Trae Young's foul baiting if they make it that far and all that kind of stuff. But again, that's not going to rise to the level of Pat Bev or Markieff or Dennis Schroeder. Like, it's not the same.
I've enjoyed.
That's the old. Fuck you. You're cool. Fuck you.
Yep.
I've enjoyed Lakers fans struggling with this series too. They don't
know
who to cheer for, you two teams, and it's great.
There was an article that was like, "Why are the Lakers fans so ardently against the Clippers?" And it's like, well, because they can they don't care about you really. Like, you share the Staples Center with them, but you've done nothing of relevance to them. So why would they care? Like, they probably consider us more rival than them, and we haven't been relevant for a decade.
Mm-hmm.
As we have history.
As a former Laker fan, I would assume they would hate the Suns more.
Mm-hmm.
They should. we've beaten you more.
But they're still kind of rooting for them, I think, just because they like our team more, because we're more likable. Objectively. Not forget the fandoms. Like, look at our roster, look at their roster, and tell me who you think is nicer.
Yep.
But it doesn't matter. What wins the series is hopefully the team that plays better in Game 6, and then if we have to, Game 7. But we'll see.
Let's not have to.
Yeah, let's just have it won by the time this airs. And we'll look foolish for talking about certain aspects of it, and I'll be fine looking foolish. I don't give a shit.
It's fine. I'll still hate Pat Bev, but
yeah, that won't have changed. He could die in Game 6. It could happen. Players have died on the court. I'm not rooting for that. I'm not that much of a monster. But at that point, this is going to look awfully silly. So, we'll see how it goes. It's the danger of pre-recording this. That is the end of the show. In between shows, you can find us weeping into a coffee mug of tears if we lose.
My son's coffee mug.
Or at objectionnetwork.com and at youtube.com/objectionnetwork for new videos 7 days a week. We'll see you next time.